When I'm not playing The Lost Eye of Thundera on my Commodore Amiga 500, I love nothing more than cruising Third Earth in the Thunder Tank, listening to Aaron and John on the Amigos podcast. Thunder, 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 Thundercats! Ho!
Amigos, your home for everything Amiga. Amigos is a proud member of the Throwback Network, your home for quality retro podcasting. And now, here are your hosts, Aaron Dowdy and John Bodovkar Schaller.
Hi everybody, welcome to Amigos. I'm John.
And I'm Aaron.
And today we're going to be talking about Gem Power in Mutant Planet.
What a name.
Yeah.
What a name this game has.
But before we take a little trip to the Mutant Planet, Aaron, is there anything going on in the world of Amiga news this week?
We had some news this week.
Little bit.
Let me open up the Gambletron 5000 here. So, our good friend Adam Bradley posted, we should talk about this straight away. The Myst project has been shuttered, is dead, no more.
This shocked me when I read it.
Really?
Yeah.
So you read this as well.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you.
Yeah, this has been all over the internet, all over the retro gaming communities. You know, I guess from what I gathered is that it's not financially doable for this guy anymore because there's been so many clones that have come out. FPGAs in general, I guess, are going to be more popular. There's more fish in the pond.
You know, reading this, you get an idea of what it's like to be out in front for a while. And what happens is, and this guy talks about it, he went through all the legal aspects, he went through all the electrical, getting things up to code, and getting things approved, and getting things approved in different countries, and all the things you have to do to market and sell an electronic device in a legal, responsible way. The problem is, other people looked at his cunning, well thought out instrument, they ripped it off, they didn't do any of the things he did, and then just sold it as is at a cheaper rate. That's pretty much the long and short of it. He did everything he could to keep the prices down, but he had a certain point where he couldn't make these things and lose money. He had to stop. And so he basically admitted that he can't compete with people that are just cutting corners.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And we've both ordered cheap crap from China, all right, and other countries, not just to single them out.
China.
Yeah. And you wait 400 to 600 years, and it shows up, and you're like, I wonder if this will work. And you try it because it's so cheap, you don't care, and hopefully it works. That's sort of the similar fate of what's happened to this fellow. Other people were making it cheaper and cutting corners, and that's why it died. I don't think you can blame any one person. I don't think you blame the community. This happens often to people that are in front of the race. You know, they can't keep up. How many times did we hear the vampire was going to die?
Right.
Like about 100 times. Well, it's still kicking. Maybe people have withdrawn or whatever. But, you know, it's not going to be the last, of that sort of card. You know, it's just the way it goes. And it was a sad thing, and this guy was right on the front of the movement, but that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, whenever you're the first in line, unless you employ an army of lawyers to, attack of all of your opponents. In the days of the internet where, you can order stuff, like you said, from China, I don't know how anybody makes money on any kind of, invention anymore because those copycats pop up so quickly.
Yes, I agree. So, moving along, I had a note sent over to me. I think this one was also Adam. And this is on the a very interesting case, the X500 Pro. Now, I watched this little video. I'm guessing you watched it as well. And I had saw people that were sort of negative towards this. And I watched this, and it is, I'm not negative towards it, but it is goofy to me. It's a little strange. Now, I don't know. Part of me, and basically to explain what this is effectively like an Amiga-style case to put other stuff in, I don't know if you would put a Raspberry Pi or a one of the microcomputers or whatnot.
Like a mini ITX
right,
motherboard.
It's a real fancy. It's pretty fancy looking. I didn't necessarily like some of the layouts, but the keycaps are all interchangeable. And they've got different styles of keyboards. I will say in the pictures, and we're watching the flash party, they picked the most god awful ones. I didn't know. Did you like any of those?
No.
What the hell was that?
I was just thinking
That's
that.
okay, black.
Right.
They just had weird combinations of colors. It reminds me of computers way back when you go to like a mainframe and there'd be a keyboard. It'd be like looks like they just picked up random keys and stuck it on there. It's got a mesh top. All right.
I'm not crazy about the mesh top.
It's dangerous to have that much mesh. It's a lot of mesh. I know
It's a lot of mesh.
He's got the room in there for a couple fans. Now, this is a Kickstarter, we should mention. Now, all that said, this is why I didn't poo-poo this thing. I have really enjoyed, here's another one of my usual rants and how much I love the Amiga 600. The footprint on this thing's tremendous. And I will say, having a big PC in a big, huge metal case, that sucks. If I could have a computer that does all the crap my PC does, and you could stick it in one of these X500 cases, I'd be a happy boy.
Do you think that one of these is for the Amiga 1, that thing that Amiga on the Lake sells?
I don't know. He has the base in it. He's got it looks like a very small board in it, and he's got various keys and various There's a mesh, and there's sort of for the backing. There's a mesh. There's sort of a plastic you can put on it.
Yeah, we were right to begin with. It's for a mini ITX motherboard.
Right.
So it's like if you have a PC that you want to put in a case that looks a little bit like an Amiga, except maybe not quite as cool as an Amiga, then this is the thing for you.
You can make this look a lot like an Amiga if you put if you put the badges on it and the same kind of, it would, but I mean it's a black Amiga.
I
or
just
whatever color. I think that there's other colors.
I think there's something inherently weird about having an Amiga that's black. It just doesn't seem right to me.
I thought about spray painting mine because it's so regular. Now let me ask you, this is a Kickstarter. Did you catch how much they have raised? Let's have a look.
Let's go back and see.
Because I'm kind of wondering if it's
looks
close.
like these guys have raised let's over 10% of their goal. So let's say they need 28,000 and they raised 29.59. But there's still 42 days to go.
Now I will say this, and I wish these guys well, but I will say that having plastic molded and produced is an expensive undertaking.
Right, it is
you know
not
what I'm
cheap.
talking about, don't you?
Yep.
And that much said, 30 grand. That's a lot of money to ask for this. I mean, how many people are using these for strictly? I don't know. That's a lot of money.
Well, and what's the cost on one of these? Say that you want to get a case. So it looks like you've got to spend, let's see, 369 pounds.
So that's roughly $425.
$523.
Okay.
And so you're getting a case.
Right.
This does not include the computer.
Sure. I mean, clearly not.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that.
I don't know. I mean, you can get a pretty nice computer for under $500.
Well, but it's the form factor.
I understand.
Or maybe it's just the glamour of having this exciting thing. I don't know. And I saw it looks like it had enough room in it for like one of those baby ATX style power supplies, 2 big fans. I don't know. Again, that's a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
But if that's your bag, go for it. I wish the guy well. I hope he gets it, but I would not be surprised if this one gets tailored and brought back at a cheaper rate. 'Cause you got a long way to go to make 30 grand. So
right.
that's a lot. But still, hey, at least someone's up there trying. I can actually see why you would want one of these. I will say that something to have in a cool little computer. It's fun.
Yeah.
But then again, that's why we got laptops, I guess. All right, moving right along here. So we've got an article here, and I have to say I didn't see this one pop up. This is another one from Adam. Tribute magazine has launched. Let's have a look at that one, Boat. And basically, what this is a new magazine, I believe. Isn't it an online affair?
It's an online magazine, but it's dedicated to the first ever European magazine which focused on the Amiga.
So, of course, we wouldn't know anything about that.
So yeah, I guess AUI is the original magazine, and I guess they've launched this website to sort of resurrect the feeling around it. Every magazine had its own sort of flavor, and maybe they were hoping to sort of recapture that essence in online form.
magazines weren't as big a deal over here, or certainly Amiga magazines. We only had, what, 2?
Well, the Amiga wasn't as big of a deal
Right.
over here.
But I mean, and Coco, but I mean, magazines were a much bigger deal over there. Like
Yeah.
the
they
discs that were
appreciate
involved,
they
stuff, we didn't
appreciate
get
the
this.
written word a lot more in Europe than we do here.
Really, the only magazines we had that had like awesome discs on the front. I guess PC Gamer maybe included some discs there for a while, but I can't think of many more. Can you?
A lot of the console-based magazines, like PlayStation Magazine and stuff, they all had demo discs on the front.
Yeah, that was after the retro era, as far as I'm concerned. But I'm talking actual floppies.
Right.
I remember buying PC Gamer.
Well,
for floppies.
Antic Magazine had. Maybe you just didn't get any of the magazines that had
Yeah.
because Antic had a cover disc. I only had an Atari computer, so I don't know about any of the
Can
other
you imagine
ones.
though? Like they had over in the UK for the Amiga, you had countless.
Yeah.
And I remember getting a lot of UK magazines because they had the discs on. I'm like, oh, I gotta try this. And also, they were just way better.
Right.
Than what we had. So, But hey.
Good
pretty
luck to
neat.
those
Yeah,
guys.
Yeah, I agree. So here's a sad one, Boat. I know you actually put this one up. I'll let you talk about it. Bob Wakeland. You want to talk about what happened here?
Yeah, as soon as I'm able to pull it up, why don't you get us rolling?
So Bob Wakeland has passed away. He was an artist.
Okay. Bob worked for, he did a lot of contract work for Ocean, and he designed so many classic covers of Amiga games, not only Amiga games, but all the classic computer games that came out through Ocean, especially in the UK. Sometimes in the States we got different cover art, and a lot of these games didn't even come out here. But Daley Thompson's Decathlon, how many copies did that sell? So tons and tons of really epic, memorable cover art. Amigo Chris Folds even has a signed Bob Wakeland poster in his room.
The art here, as we're both flipping through this, is a lot of this I've never seen. It's really good.
Yeah, I was kind of sad. Unfortunately, he did the art for Kid Chaos, and that was it. But,
you can't blame him for that.
Yeah, he got paid. But anyway, man, look at that Miami Vice. That's a perfect cover for that game. But yeah, rest in peace, Bob, and we sure appreciate your work.
His death got a lot of, I saw it everywhere. He was a celebrated guy. And I have to say, like we were just discussing, I don't really keep up with a lot of the artists and stuff, but I mean, you look at, and we talked about, it was the guy that did Whizball 2, or what the one we covered a couple months ago. WizKid. I remember talking about the artist on that because that was such an unusual art style and some of the stuff he did. So every once in a while we'll touch on it, but I will say having looked this guy's stuff over was really tremendous. I mean, This guy was a good hand for sure. So lastly, before we get in the site news, new joystick. This is from Chris Folds, and this is a Competition Pro, the old standard joystick that everyone loves. They're back in stock at Amiga Kit. You can go grab you one.
What's the going rate for one of these? £28.99. So that is not cheap.
No, it is not. And people love these sticks. Now, have you ever used one of these both?
Never in my life.
You know me. I'm a Wicco man.
You'll ride that thing into the ground.
I got 2 now, and I would never give them up. That said, these look pretty good. The big sticks, though, I do have to say I like one I can fully grasp. Mm-hmm. And the bigger ones, I've got those bat handle Wiccos. I don't use them that much. I know you hated the one you had.
Well, it was non-functional, so that had something to do with it.
Functional light. Let's go there. Listen, at least at the end of it wasn't chewed off.
That's true, but
Both choices in joysticks, they have to be gnawed on before he gets into them.
I gotta be able to taste the action.
Oh, that's just wretched. So if you're looking to get a Comp Pro, they're out there.
They're out there.
Otherwise, I know these things, the used ones are going, I'd see them go pretty expensive on occasion.
It would be interesting to see if you can get one of the new ones for cheaper or more than the going rate of an old one.
I don't know, man. So let's go roll right in the site news.
Okay.
Seamlessly. So right out of the gate, let's talk about Brutal Barracuda. He came out last week with 7 games that for the Amiga that went on to be movies. Well, not to be outdone, he flipped the script and reversed it. And now it's 75 Amiga games based on movies. Now let me tell you something. I watched this, and by the way, the Double B's format is beyond reproach.
Yeah.
The timer, the spinning on, everything on it is great. And I mean, these are slick. slick. I got to get some lessons from this guy. And he goes through a bunch of these games, and I'll have to say, I actually remembered or have played a good chunk of these. There were a couple that popped up. I was like, are you kidding me? That got a game?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, when you think about it,
this is one of them. We're looking at Lethal Weapon. Like, I didn't know there was a game based on Lethal Weapon.
75 games over the course of the Amiga's lifespan. I mean, that's 10 games a year,
Well, there was a lot of licensing out there.
Yeah.
I would wager a large chunk of these were involved with Ocean in some capacity, who would license your home movies if they could get a good rate. And so now out of these 75 boats, and this is, I don't know if you watched this entire video, but just roughly off the top of your head, what percentage of these do you think is crap?
I'd say probably 80%.
80%?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I was thinking more like 60, but hey.
I think, most licensed games are just not any good. Now, there are games that are sort of entertaining but still bad, like the Blues Brothers.
Yeah.
I did an Amigos plays on that. And I mean, although it was virtually unplayable after a certain point, it was still kind of neat to see, Jake and Elwood doing their thing on the Amiga.
Well, we've played a few of these. We haven't done a ton of licensed stuff, but we've done some. And it is a mixed bag often. But hey, it's still kind of neat. And a good thing about a licensed game is it takes you back to that exact point in time, and you can see what was going on. By the way, a Running Man game I didn't know exists. Because remember, I think it was like 2 months ago, I was like, why haven't they made a Running Man game? And there it is. So once again, I'm an uninformed idiot.
Well, I'm still not sure that they've made a Running Man game, to be honest with you.
Hey, it's called Running Man, close enough for me. So let's talk about, and this, I'm sure this fellow watched that video because he's reported on many of these games. It's our old buddy Dreamcatcher. So this time around, Dreamcatcher did something. I read this the second he posted it, and it's about the game rivalry, if you will, between the highly touted Transformers and the poor second banana GoBots.
Are you going to sing that title?
I don't know how to sing it.
Galvatron, oh Galvatron, I still hear your particle accelerator cannons crashing.
I still don't know how to sing it. What's that based on?
Man.
I don't get it. Help me out
It's
here.
Galveston.
No, sorry. I don't know it.
Really?
I'm sorry, man. What can I tell
Have you ever heard Wichita Lineman?
Yeah.
Okay, it's the same guy.
Oh, that's still pretty obscure.
Glenn Campbell, one of the biggest singing stars of our generation.
Yeah, I know. But so let's get to the game. This isn't the Amigos Presents Weird Old Music.
I wish we could do a Glenn Campbell show.
Oh my God,
That'd
are
be
you
great.
kidding me? I know. You come out here dressed like him. So this basically goes into the games that came out under the GoBots and Transformers banner. Now the Transformers game is notorious crap. I mean, if you ever played
That's a box quote right there. Notorious crap.
It's
Aaron
the
Dowdy.
notorious CRAP. I used to not be into GoBots or Transformers to be complete. I've got a couple.
You were kind of old when they were
No,
you were
they
kind of old
weren't
for
that
them.
old. I've got a couple Transformers. I was not that old, you bum. I've got one of the airplanes at the house. In fact, it's in Luke's room. And I used to have Optimus Prime, too. Nobody had GoBots, because if you had GoBots, you looked like a jerk.
I had GoBots.
Why didn't that surprise me? Did you wear this ensemble to school back in the day?
I did. I was very popular.
I knew it. So GoBots were the sad, pathetic second banana to the Transformers. Although,
well, I think that their names were also sad and pathetic. I'm pretty sure that they're like the main GoBot. His name was Leader One or something like that.
But it's funny because this article mentions that the GoBots actually sort of predate the Transformers. Which I know who'd have thunk it.
It's one of those Oreo Hydrox situations.
Yeah, I guess so. And also, I did not realize that the GoBots cartoon stuff by Hanna-Barbera, which I like some of Hanna-Barbera stuff. In fact, me and the kid are currently watching the All-Star Laugh Olympics. We're going through the whole
I like
run of
that show,
those.
yeah.
But it looks like the GoBots game was less wretched than the Transformers game. Neither one of these look like $1 million. You know what I'm saying? I think the GoBots is sort of a Defender kind of rip-off. Neither one of them exactly lit up the reviewers either. But it's an interesting article. It's done in Dreamcatcher's own interesting style, and it's the kind of article you would expect from the man. And I enjoyed it. I had a good laugh, and I'd forgotten the GoBots existed too. So
Really?
I mean, just such.
Not a day goes by when I
They
don't
were just such.
reflect them.
I mean, they were the loser toy. If you
Well, yeah, I mean, they were definitely, when Transformers came out, they were all metal and cool. GoBots, I'm pretty sure, were mostly plastic.
they were the B team.
prone to break.
And
yeah.
if you had the big money, you'd skip all this crap and just go right to the Micronauts. Those things cost a fortune.
Really?
You could kill them, man. You could beat them to death.
I was
with one
not
of them.
familiar with the Micronauts.
They were all hard plastic and metal, and they were but they were cool. I mean, their comics stunk, but I did have a bunch of them. So anyway, that's a good read right there. Now, I don't want to toot our own horn, Boat. Because
I do.
I hate to do it. But last week we sat down for what I can only describe as an epic encounter. This isn't Amiga related, but I'm going to pitch it anyway because I was so proud of it. Me and Boat took my childhood Odyssey 2 that I've recently modded, and we sat down and played one of the master strategy games, the premier game on the Odyssey 2, Quest for the Rings. Quest for the Rings was an interesting game on the Odyssey 2 that was not only a video game, but a board game. And you had an overlay that went over the keyboard, and a board, and in little pieces, and you played a board game, and at certain times you were required to pick your joystick up and play the video game. We had never played it, all right? I have never played it with the board. I mean, as a kid, we would just load up the game and try to figure out what was going on. And Boat had how many cameras do you have here? 5 cameras, 4 or 5 cameras.
Lots of cameras.
And plus, Boat went in and digitized all the art and displayed this thing, and it turned out it's probably the most awesome thing we've ever done.
Probably so.
In terms of difficulty, the game went without a flaw once we figured out the instructions.
In terms of it not blowing up on us, like many of our endeavors, this was.
I kept waiting for the Odyssey to fail
Right.
because this was the console that I owned as a child. This was the first thing I ever had. I've mentioned on the show before, and it played great. And everything Boat would enter the art and book pictures for different parts of the game so you could understand what we were doing. And we've gotten a lot of real happy, nice compliments about it. And I really, really enjoyed it. I mean, probably the most fun I've had.
Yeah.
We didn't win.
Unfortunately.
But we still had a good run.
Yeah.
And we'll probably almost certainly play some more of these board game Odyssey games again. So we're pitching it because I think it's something that anybody can enjoy. And it's in the land of video games, it's a real oddity. I mean, it never has been done before or since that I know of. And you'd be crazy to try it because the amount of money it would have cost to generate that game, that was probably they would sell that game now for $200.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, when you look at the quality of the pieces, they're real metal pieces. The instruction manual was really good paper. The box was like a treasure chest that you opened up.
Yeah,
That's great.
and the manual had full color glossy paper with a kind of a parchmenty gold leaf paper in between the pages, and just unbelievable spectacle. Just to have the box is unbelievable. So we enjoyed it, and if the public demand is high enough, or even if it's not, we will probably, once we figure out how to play the other 2 games, which are much more complicated.
Public demand has never stopped us from doing anything.
We're going to do the next one. So again, not Amiga related, but Amigo related, just because we had so much fun doing it, so we thought we'd mention it. So if we've got anything else here, Boat, I think we may have ran. Do you have anything else to talk about?
I've got one other thing. I wanted to take a quick look at the old YouTube channel, the Amigos Retrogaming YouTube channel, because we've got a new feature coming out. Brutal Barracuda has gone through and selected all of our classic mailbag segments and drawn them from the show. And so you can see us opening various things.
Turned off the green screen on that part.
Yeah, this was one of our crazy Christmas episodes, so I don't even know what we're talking about there. But you can go through and watch all of our classic mailbags where we open up lots of British candy and Norwegian candy, and
I couldn't believe how many of these there were.
I know.
I didn't count, but there's got to be at least 12, something like that. And something else I found interesting is like the man, the myth, the legend, the Double B, who is going through and done this for us. We need this because we've botched all these gifts, including his, right?
People send us stuff and we immediately forget who sent it to us.
have you ever heard the old phrase, if you want something done right, you have to do it yourself? BB, the Barracuda, took that phrase to heart.
That's
and
right.
To make us be better, he went through and did this. So we appreciate it. And
Thank
they're
you,
fun to
Brutal.
watch. If you want to watch us gorge ourselves and generally look stupid, there you go.
All right, Aaron, I believe it's time to dive right into this week's game of the week, Gem Power in Mutant Planet.
Now, right off the bat, let me just preface this by saying I had never heard of this game. I had never seen this game, and I had no idea what this game was about. In fact, I asked you. I was like, what is this game? And you said, just do it, it'll be great. I was like, okay, so.
Well, this was a game that was brought to our attention by Amigos Game Selection Committee member, Chris Foles.
This was a Foles.
He suggested this one.
So, we'll get into it. So, Gem Power, this is the full title, Gem Power, in Mutant Planet.
Emphasis on the colon.
In Mutant Planet, not on the planet. He's in the planet. It's a mutant planet. He's in
it, yeah.
So this thing dropped in 1992, and the developer of this was an outfit called Digital Concept. I'm going to come back to them in a minute. There's actually the backstory of this game is kind of interesting. So this came out on 2 discs. The people that published it was an outfit called. You want to try to pronounce that Loriciel? It's French.
Yeah, this is one that I don't really know. Loriciel is what I'd go with too.
Now, I was familiar with these guys because I knew them from Panzer Kickboxing.
Panzer Kickboxing.
Another French title, which I loved, as you know. They also did another game I like, so that's 2. They did the Tennis Cup series. They did Tennis Cup 1 and 2. I'm a big fan of Tennis Cup 2. They did Speed Racer. Go Speed Racer Go.
Yeah.
And they did Sherman Tank, Sherman M4, and they also did Pinball Magic. You remember I don't think we ever filmed it, but I've taken a look at that. I'm guessing you did too. It's part of that big pinball pack.
I was going to say, that's not the one where you're the basketball player down on his luck, right?
No, that was a Saturn game.
Okay.
Holy smokes. Yeah, if you want to see a real bizarre game, look our Saturn channel up. We played a pinball game on there about a basketball player. It's the strangest pinball game of all time. So, this game, and I'm going to mention this for a reason, this game, it was coded by a fellow named Fernando Velez. And his partner was a fellow named Guillemot Dubail. Again, for our French listeners, I apologize. So these two were quite a pair, which I'll get into their story in a little while. Now, the music on this game, who's the man?
Husselbeck.
That's right.
That's right.
Chris Husselbeck. He's done it all, right? He's done Great Guiana Sisters, Monkey Island, R-Types, the Turricans, Fidia, BC Kid. We've reviewed a lot of these games, haven't we?
We're big Husselbeck fans.
And one of your personal favorites, the game you couldn't figure out how to start, Bad Cat. I just threw that in there. That's a whole other story. So this was actually, here's something that surprised me. This game actually got quite a bit of conversion for something I've never heard of. It came out in the ST, of course. It came out on the PC Engine. Didn't know that, right? The TurboGrafx CD is where more precisely. It came out on the Super Nintendo, Bo. Did you know that?
No.
Yeah, man. And it came out on the PC, and it came out on the Genesis / Mega Drive.
This got the full slate of
It
releases.
did. Now, when you look at, I will say, parts of this game, when you look at it, you think to yourself, "Oh, I could see this on a console, with no problem." So, before we get into the actual game, I want to talk a little bit about some of the people that were involved in the game, because it's kind of an interesting story. So the game was developed by an outfit called Digital Concepts, okay? So Digital Concepts was only stayed that name for a little while, and eventually the name was changed to VD Dev, and that stood for Valet and Duval Dev Team, right? So the two gentlemen I talked about earlier, Velez and Duval, they were partners, and they worked, and their philosophy was one guy would do the coding and one guy would do the graphics, and this is how they worked. And these guys were actually very well respected all the way across the board for being very innovative. Some of their biggest games, this was their first game, but they actually had a lot of hits on like the Game Boy, you know, and that's sort of where they made their name, because they would take these like racing games, for example, and they would be awesome, right? And one of the big ones they had was called V-Rally on the Game Boy Color. That sort of got them on their way. Another game was called Wacky Races, which I'd heard of that game. That's another Game Boy and Game Boy Color. Test Drive, Supercross Freestyles. They did a lot of driving games, and they were known for being able to generate these games. They did the first Game Boy game that was a driving game that was in a 3D perspective. It wasn't an overhead. So this was quite a feat when they did it. They were working on a game, unfortunately, it was their last game because, unfortunately, one of the partners, Velez, on June 10th, he got taken to the hospital for a heart failure, and he passed away on July 22nd of 2016.
Oh.
So yeah, kind of
recently departed.
Yeah, it's kind of sad.
Yeah.
And his partner, again, they were in the process of making a game, and the game was originally going to come out for the Wii U, and it's a racing game. It was going to come out on the Wii U, and it hasn't, and so they're still working on it because he died right in the middle of the game.
Oh
and
my
so
gosh.
it's playable, but it's not finished, and so it's kind of sad. So there's there's a lot of turmoil there in the studio. That was kind of depressing thing to read.
Didn't that happen with the game that we talked about last week? Didn't a similar situation happen where the developer passed away and they had to have somebody come in, or maybe he was just fired?
The only one I can think of was the fellow that did.
Was that Caverns of Mars?
The fellow I think of was Deluxe Galaga that happened.
Right.
That fellow was doing that. He was doing the game and the sequel, and he passed away. So the game they were working on, by the way, was called Rise Race the Future. And so there
was it RYSE?
RISE.
Oh.
Rise. And so this game, it was slated to be released in this past December. It didn't come out, so it has not been released yet. So again, that's kind of sad. But I mean, you can tell from this game. We'll get into this game's graphics or whatever. But these guys weren't just like a couple hacks. I mean, they had some skills. So let's talk about Loriciel, or whatever the name of the developer is. They're an interesting story too. So they're a French game developer. They started their development in '83. They were a developer before they were a publisher. So they found a lot of success working on a system called the ARG 1. Have you ever heard of that ARG 1?
I thought that was a mini computer.
It's one of
those big refrigerator size machines.
It was out in '83.
Okay, maybe I'm thinking of something else.
Yeah. So then at one point, these guys were the biggest video game developers in France, if you can believe that. So eventually they went into publishing, and they, like I said, they published, among other things, Panzer Kickboxing, which ended up being their biggest, most well-known hit, aside from probably this. So again, decent publisher. I like when we do stuff from other countries because we've done a couple games that were mostly French, and so it's kind of neat. It's just kind of neat, and there's a flavor to the game sometimes and Pans is like that too. It's different. It's a little different than what we normally would expect. So with all that in mind, let's talk about Gem Power. So Gem Power is a game. It's a game with several different faces. Some parts of the game are basically side-scrolling, shooting and jumping. I'm not sure we have a formal name for it.
Side-scrolling shooter.
Shooting and jumping. Well, there's jumping in there.
Okay, side-scrolling platformer. Side-scrolling action platformer.
Bam, you got it, Bo. So in this game, you play Gem Power. There's a really dopey backstory where Gem Power basically he's on the mutant planet, and he's got to rescue his girlfriend, I believe is the. But I mean, so wow, that's original, right? The first thing you'll notice on the very first level, the very first screen of the game, is that you've got parallax scrolling coming out the yin yang in this. It's sort of like. The parallax in it reminded me more of Shadow of the Beast than it did Lionheart. But if those two games had like a sun, if you took Lionheart and made it as hard as Shadow of the Beast, you would have the first level of this game. In the Amiga style, this game is nigh impossible. And I will say up front, it should be noted straight out of the gate, I had to cheat to see almost every part of this game.
Well, and you know that it's a hard game when our boy Zeus Daz, who's providing us with a playthrough, he's got infinite lives turned on.
Yeah,
that tells you all you need.
Yeah, because Zeus Daz can go. So this game has several different flavors. So again, in the first level, you're running around. So Jim Powers also has a jetpack, and so some levels involve you sort of a flying shooter, I guess would be the best way to put it. And some levels, like one that comes to mind is there's a level where you're sort of hovering in front of this weird vehicle, are sort of both. I mean, it's sort of like you're flying, but there's ground, and it's and there's a thing in front of you. It's hard to explain.
It's an interesting perspective.
Yeah, you're basically flying in between two enemies,
right,
for like the whole level. This game has a lot of different, obstacles. They do a lot in this game, probably more than any game I think I've ever seen with floating platforms. I mean, I'll have to say, because I thought Lionheart was very clever with the way they used. I know you didn't like it, but the way they used the floating platforms, and it was interesting. Sometimes you'd have to hit the platform to stop it.
I thought that was interesting.
This game, it's not as clever as Lionheart, but it's every bit as innovative in terms of platforms. Some of the platforms move in a weird pattern, and they're really, or some of them are like waved, and you have to jump on them. It's real strange. Sometimes you go in and out of like structures in a weird way, and you can sort of see yourself in it. You know what I'm saying? Through a cutaway in the wall. Sometimes there are spikes in the structures, and so you've got to literally, as you get on the structure, if you stay on it too long, you'll be killed. And it's very strange. Sometimes they have, a lot of games have little trap doors that open and shut. This one will have trap doors that go on for a couple screens, and they'll open and shut at different times. And it's tough. I mean, stop me when I'm wrong. It is brutally hard. And of course, if you fall, there's no second chance or saving yourself. If you go, you're gone. Now, the amount of damage your guy can take. I mean, everything seems to kill this guy everywhere you go. I mean, he could literally. This is the Mutant planet is the most dangerous planet.
It's like the Australia of planets.
I'm assuming he landed on the Shadow of the Beast planet, like the other side, and this is like
the dark side of the Shadow of the Beast planet.
Mutant planet is brutal, man. It is brutal. Now, what were your initial impressions on this boat when you first fired it up?
Well, this game, it's interesting because I think that this game took a lot more from Japanese game development than a game like Lionheart or Turrican because of the way that the levels are set up. The fact that there's not any vertical exploration. You don't have these labyrinth-like levels where you're not really sure where to go, where you fall off the edge of something and you have to reclaim lost territory.
Like, say, a Turrican 2.
Right, like Turrican 2 or Lionheart. This game is much more like a Contra-style affair where you're working your way from the left side of the level to the right side with very little verticality in there. I thought that as beautiful as the backgrounds are, with the multiple layers of parallax scrolling, the way that the platforms move around, I thought that they definitely cut some corners on old Jim's animation. He's another one of these heroes with the strange and unusual skill of being able to jump without bending his knees.
He does. Well, I told you, he walks like he's got a stick shoved up his hide.
It's a very Huckleberry Hound-esque animation.
Man, that poor game. You keep referencing it.
And the same way with the enemies too. One of the few things that I think is great about Lionheart is they really took the time to animate the enemies well. They didn't just sort of hover around and kind of slide towards you without being animated. These enemies don't really do a whole lot. They move around on the screen, but they don't have a lot of frames of animation. So I thought even though the backgrounds themselves, the levels are very well decorated. I would hesitate to call them pretty because they're very heavy on the neons, in sort of a I don't know, vomit-inducing way for me. But it's very Shadow of the Beast-like for sure.
Well, I'll tell you, the first time I loaded up the first level, I mean the Amiga allegedly. Now I didn't sit here and count, but allegedly the Amiga version of this game offers 12 levels of parallax, which that's completely insane.
Right.
12 levels, boat. But the first thing I saw was when I played the first level was it looked washed out to me. It just really had it was like an EGA quality to it, and by that I mean like a 16. It just didn't look. It wasn't very colorful, I guess. I mean, the colors that they had just were very dimmed. I don't know what it was. I don't know if that was a limitation of using that much scrolling, or that's how you had to use a color variance to get that. But now the game, not every level looks like that. Some of the levels look better than others. They all look impressive. I mean, there's no doubt about that. The amount of things going on with and the frame rate, I never saw the frame rate dip at all.
No, it does. It animates very well. There was not any slowdown, or there's not a whole lot of flickering.
I mean,
gameplay-wise, aside from the difficulty, is pretty impressive.
This is a show your game system off type game. Especially this thing runs on the OCS. I mean, ponder that if you will. Which this is another of those games that makes me wonder why we didn't get this sort of action off a lot more
games like this. Yeah.
Now I mean, again, this game from a beauty-wise it's a pretty attractive game. It's not like I said, it's not the most colorful, but I mean, there's so much going on. It's an impressive technical feat, if anything else.
I'm sitting here watching this thing, and I don't understand why you don't think it's colorful. To me, this is just as colorful.
The first level I thought was elite, was not very good. I mean, the color-wise. The other levels the subsequent levels I thought were better, but the first I was underwhelmed.
Because I'm looking at this right now, and I mean, this is just as colorful as any game on the platform.
Well, again, the first level is what I'm talking about. I thought it was underwhelming, especially to start your game off with it. It just my first impression wasn't.
How many games have we reviewed where the first level is terrible, and then it gets good about 2/3 of the way through an impossible game? Yeah.
Now this game has end bosses. I managed to get to a couple through various means, and they were pretty standard fare. I mean, that's not fair. I guess. Some of them were different. There's, like I said, there's a weird sort of vehicle you fight. There's a weird sort of thing with an eyeball in the middle of it that you fight that was pretty interesting. I actually fought the last guy in the game, and through cheatery, got past him. It's this sort of like demon-looking guy with wings and stuff. So, I mean, I thought they did a pretty good job on the bosses. I mean, I like games that have a boss battle. Well,
you need to have them in a platforming game like this for sure.
Sure, absolutely. This game had multiple weapons and power-ups you could get for the guy. And let me tell you something. You needed a lot of the various bullets and whatnot, as many as you could pick up. So this thing had clocks. Oh, did we mention there was a clock as a timer that you have to get through? I turned that thing the heck off. That's the first thing I did. So you could pick up fruit, and that will give you hit points, basically, or life points. Just one-ups floating around, and there are diamonds. But the smart bombs on there. Now the smart bombs. This is Boat's favorite type of game, up for jump. Now, when you played this, did you play it with up for jump on, or did you actually remap it?
I knew from watching the playthrough that this was going to be way too hard for me to do, no matter what I remap my buttons to. So I just decided to play it in all its original controller glory.
Now I played this two different ways. I played it with my Wiko, and I also played it with the Super Nintendo converter I had. And this is the first game I tried using the various settings on to make one of the Super Nintendo buttons jump, and I like that. It worked. But the thing is, of course. On levels where you're flying around, things change, so you can't. For this game, I wouldn't recommend it. But I mean, anything that lets you use a button for jump, at least for a few levels, was good. I'd have to
move it back. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but you could have different shots, like we mentioned, and those were important. But I mean, it really didn't matter because you could kill more people, but you were screwed. I mean, this game is. I thought that's the biggest Achilles heel. Graphics are great, parallax scrolling great, music great. We didn't mention how much the music, it's not Turrican great, but it's pretty darn good music. It's just too hard. If you did not have cheats in this, you would be screwed. I don't know how anyone could get off the second level. I don't have any idea. I mean, unless you're just a real good hand, it is brutally hard.
I did not make it past the second level.
Yeah, I would imagine not. I can understand that. Like I said, it's just a hard game. I mean, you're not a horrible game player either. You're a pretty good hand at this sort of thing, but
this was just too much. It was too much.
So, what did you think overall? I mean, how do you? This is the classic Amiga game, isn't it? It's got some things we love and some things we absolutely don't love.
I think that this is the archetypal Amiga game where it's beautiful to look at, but it's borderline unplayable because of the difficulty.
Yes.
I think that the game holds a lot of things back too long. When is the first level that you get the jetpack? Do you remember?
I don't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah, but I mean, they needed to have that. They needed to have that in like the second level or something.
I thought those levels were every bit as hard as the running around.
But it's still, even if you're bad, it gives you a chance to experience all the different things in the game that the game has to offer.
I would have almost liked to have had a Mega Man style selection on this, where you could pick a series of worlds.
And there is an overworld, that you move through, sort of like Ghosts and Goblins.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's exactly what it reminded me of, Ghosts and Goblins. Now, this game actually got a sequel. It was a different company, and it came out on the Super Nintendo, believe it or not. I have not played it for this review, and since we don't do Super Nintendo games. But again, different company, different era, so effectively it's pretty much a whole new game at that point. This game, there was one thing I did want to mention. The cover art on this game, if you look at the cover art, if you're watching our show, Boat has a picture of the box up there. I found an awesome website I'd never seen, and these guys tracked down where they got the cover art for these books, or for these boxes, and this is one that was traced straight from a Jean-Claude Van Damme. Exact same pose, and it was literally traced. They put them side by side, and they just added the gun and the hat and the sunglasses. I mean, it's Jean-Claude Van Damme, like straight up, which I thought that was funny. Something else I wanted to mention, if you're interested in learning about Vlez and Dubal, the guys that did this and did a lot of other stuff. I mean, their story's pretty interesting. There's a YouTube documentary on those two guys, and it's really interesting to see where they came from and stuff, and I'll link it up on our Google Plus page. I looked this one up on eBay. And by the way, before I get to eBay, one thing I wanted to mention, you talked about this being more of a Japanese game. That would probably explain why it did get a TurboGrafx CD release, and it was only in Japan.
It's funny, too, because also, do you remember the end screen of this game?
Yeah, it was lame.
Yeah, but it's very anime-inspired.
Yeah,
like they're drawn in that way, which is weird. Did you notice in the
end screen where here's the guy, he's hugging her, and the chick just looks mortified.
Yeah, she's like, well, I do not want to be with this guy.
Like, give me back to the devil.
I want to be back at the Mutant planet, please.
Too,
yeah, absolutely.
The look on her face, it's not one of relief or happiness or joy or lust or anything. She just looks like I'm so scared to be with this man.
Yeah.
To be fair, the man that would go through that planet to rescue you would be a scary dude. I don't care how much he loves you, that's scary love.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? And you don't necessarily want to be indentured to this guy for the rest of your life. He would, there she is.
Yeah, so I'm going to put this up on the screen so everybody can see what.
The look on this girl's face is, I mean, look at her. She just, and of course, by the way, we should mention that Jim Powers is like Poochie, the dog, if you ever watch Simpsons. He's a kung fu surfer, Rastafarian, cool guy. He's got I mean, if you made like an 80s or early 90s cool guy, he'd have the mullet, the dumb grin, the sunglasses. He looked just like this guy, man. I mean, this guy looks like a dude bro from the bygone era.
And the thing is, this is the end of the game. You defeat the bad guy, it cuts to a one screen of text with the bad guy's head, then it's this, and then game over. That's it. That's the whole end.
Let's hope the TurboGrafx got some better footage.
And this is a game that you play through. It takes 51 minutes to play through this game with infinite lives.
And
that's how long it is.
51 grueling minutes. I actually, like I said, I beat the game with super cheats on, and I was, like I said, the ending, I couldn't get past the girl. I'm sorry, it's just the look on her face.
Yeah,
it was
so dumb.
And she's not what I would call drawn either. It's funny, these guys do all this work to make the game look great, and at the end screen, it's just like a kind of a hacky drawing of a dork and this stunned weird chick. But I guess that's what you get. So anyways, getting back to the eBay. So in France, guess what? You can get these things all day long. I saw plenty of them, but $70 or $80 boxed. So it ain't cheap, bro. Italy, for some of the people down south, $220 I saw them going for. Now, they didn't sell for that, but that's what they were asking. In Germany, $243. I don't think this ever got a North American release. I couldn't find reference to an NTSC version of this, so I would wager this never came to the States.
Yeah.
So if you're in America, you're gonna have to
get a PAL machine, and
you got to start shipping, yo. So overall, though, it's another one that I wanted to like. again, with a kind of a dopey lead character, which, again, you can see why Amiga didn't have a lot of mascots. You can't have the ball do everything. There's got to be something else.
You got to move beyond that juggling demo at some point.
And, I mean, I guess they had Spot, so we could, could have adapted that. But, this is a cheese ball. This was a very cheesy game in a lot of ways. I mean, like I said, the ending was cheesy and the main character was cheesy. The box art's cheesy. But if you like that classic cheese, this is the perfect. This
is the thing for sure. Well, before we close out of here, it's been a while since we've actually talked about our Patreon page. So I thought we'd do a little thing on that. So if you are a listener that enjoys Amigos and you'd like to help support the show, we do have a Patreon page over at amigospodcast.com/Patreon. And there are several levels of support, and we did mention the Amigos Games Selection Committee. That is one of the rewards you can get by supporting the show. But even if you just throw us a couple bucks a month, you can become an Amigos supporter, and you get featured on our awesome Amigos staff and supporter t-shirt, which is growing by leaps and bounds.
We're going to do the back.
And everything's on sale right now, apparently.
Ooh.
Thank you, T-Public, for flashing that up there. So you can pick up this shirt right now for only $14. But again, if you'd like to support the show, that's a great way to do so.
We appreciate it.
We also, Aaron, did you know that we tape this show live every week almost?
Almost every week. Some days liver than others, depending on how tired we are.
If you're listening to this show in your car and you'd like to watch us live in your car as you drive, that's not a good idea. Don't do it.
That's awesome. Do it.
But you can tune into our YouTube channel, Amigos Retrogaming. Just like the fine folks we got here in the chat, we got Jason Warrens, Hendrik Anderson, Petro Retro, Duncan Styles, Brutal Barracuda, Paul H. Eric, Sunstrom, Dan Ross. We got a whole crew of folks in here. John Marshall from right down the road. So thank you guys for watching us. And of course, Aaron, we can't let an episode go by without thanking our Amigos supporters out there on Patreon. This week we're going to do a little something different. Sometimes I just listen to random Amiga music on YouTube. I don't really listen to a lot of game soundtracks because they sound like Eurodance trash.
I like this.
But I listen to a lot of the stuff that people do on trackers, performing live on your Amiga with the keyboard as a music keyboard. I love that stuff. And a lot of times it comes complete with a lot of 90s video toaster effects, layered in.
Gotta have those.
And so I found this guy that was performing on Cable Access in San Diego in 1990.
Oh, yes.
His name is Mark Salud. And I sent him a message on Facebook. I said, hey, is this you? And I linked to the video. And I said, hey, I love this song. Could we use this on one of our shows? And he's like, yeah, go ahead. He was real cool. And so I'm going to cue that up right now and read the Patreon names to you as the waves of Amiga music crash over you. Thanks to our supporters: Level Lord, John Marshall, Matthew Perron, Ricky DeRocher, Creepy Dead Boy, Figgy CTZ, The Slowest Norris, Stefan Swargard Mortensen, Edvin Helland, Blindo75, Christopher Hassel, Ravi Abbott, who we should get one of his songs.
I was going to say Ravi's the guy you were describing earlier.
Chris Folds, Dreamcatcher, the gangster from Manchester, Laurent Giroux, Graham Vebke, Brent Dowdy, Lane Denson, Adam Battersby, O'Brien's Retro and Vintage. Do you know why they're called O'Brien's Retro and Vintage? Because that's Jonas's last name, Jonas O'Brien. What's the chances a guy that lives in Norway, his last name's O'Brien?
They've got to be slim. But then again, I don't know many people in Norway.
That's
so
true. Maybe they were all named O'Brien. Yeah. I don't know. Gary Hucker, the Huckster.
Huck.
C. Brian Jones, Paul Harrington, Duncan Styles, Anthony Jarvis, Tapes from the Crypt, Josh Nan, Will Williams, Adam Bradley, Jonas Rulo, THT, Eric Nelson, Kim Tommy Humbertstad, Daniel Bingston, Brutal Barracuda, Double B, Darren Coles, Jason Warrens, Pixels at Dawn, and go ahead.
Kilborn Barbing.
Thank you. All right, Aaron, next week, we're going to shift gears for another Amigos game selection committee selection.
All right.
This one we are going to do Dune.
Dude, you're dude.
Yes, that's right. I think that was the tagline on the box.
I will preface that by saying I hated the film.
Did you read the book?
I did not.
Oh, yeah. You're not really a big sci-fi guy at all, are you?
Sorry. That was
Yeah.
Frank
Herbert.
Herbert. Yes.
Yep. All right, guys. Thanks as always for listening. Thanks, guys, on the YouTube chat. We will see you next week. Until then, adios.